Well, in the movie, Straight Outta Compton, you saw the scene where Dre punched one of the security.
Dre would have got his book, and he would have got his book bad. They are out of line for putting that in there because they know. It doesn't seem like we, you know what I'm saying? And I'm here on Vlad TV telling them, y'all got for putting that in there.
That was just one of the many supposed lies Dr. Dre was accused of telling in Straight Outta Compton. Now, that's not to say Dr. Dre didn't punch anyone. He did, but most definitely not a Pyru, like the movie suggested. According to insiders, Dre isn't built like that at all, so his attempt to portray himself as a gangster came off as comical to many people.
Dre ain't no gangster. Dre wasn't with it like that. Dre didn't run Compton, run in Compton.
It seemed like Dre tried to make himself seem like the man. He turned himself into a gangster, and everybody know that's not Dre's character.
But honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the one-sided storytelling and major details conveniently left out of the film, or how they did Eazy-E dirty. According to a lot of folks, Straight Outta Compton didn't just bend the truth, it helped spread straight-up myths and lies about Eazy-E, a man who's not even here to defend himself.
Eazy wasn't the type of dude you can just say anything to, talk to any kind of way. So the fact that they made him look more docile than he was, I didn't like it. I don't get like why they put that in the movie. So to me, it seemed like they was trying to skew his legacy, in my opinion.
Many insiders believe that if Eazy was still alive, this movie would have never been made, or at the very least, it would have been a completely different story. Let's take a closer look. One of the most convenient things the movie left out was Dr. Dre's history of women. When Straight Outta Compton dropped, it caught a lot of heat for completely ignoring one of the darkest moments in N.W.A.'s history, Dre's brutal nightclub attack on hip-hop journalist Dee Barnes back in 1991. What makes it even worse is that the original 150-page script actually did include a graphic scene of the assault, but at some point, that scene mysteriously disappeared. Director F. Gary Gray later said he chose to cut it because he wanted the movie to focus more on N.W.A. as a group rather than get into certain personal incidents. But for a lot of people, it just looked like a cover-up. The January 1991 assault on Barnes stemmed from an interview she gave with Ice Cube, who was feuding with N.W.A. after he departed the group. One glaring example is what happened with Dee Barnes, a presenter on the Fox TV show Pump It Up, which covered hip-hop culture and often featured big-name rappers. By the time the Ice Cube drama kicked off, Dee had already interviewed N.W.A. several times. She was familiar with the whole crew and had covered them on her show for years.
Ice Cube of N.W.A. will be hanging out with him and all his homies at his house.
We'll be back after these commercials or breaks or cuts or whatever.
Whatever. Don't go anywhere.
But once Cube left, things shifted. N.W.A. responded by dissing him hard on their track 100 Miles and Runnin', making it clear they weren't just going to let him walk away quietly. According to Dee Barnes herself, when she got the group back on Pump It Up to talk about their latest moves, the energy was tense from the start. Every question she asked led to a jab at Ice Cube, and it got so heated that the production team had to edit out some of the harsher parts just to make the interview airable. But here's where things took a turn. When the episode finally aired, it included not only the N.W.A. interview, but also another clip filmed earlier on the set of Boys and the Hood with Yo-Yo, who was Ice Cube's friend and collaborator. Unexpectedly, Ice Cube crashed the interview and took the opportunity to diss N.W.A., using their own lyrics to throw shade right back at them. To make matters worse, Cube even made fun of the Doc, who was close to Dr. Dre and had recently suffered a car accident that permanently damaged his voice.
Ice Cube gon' pump it up. I got all suckers 100 miles and one. Like to give a shout out to the DLC.
For the record, even at the time, Dee Barnes said she didn't think they should air that segment, but as just a presenter, she didn't have the final say over the edit. Unfortunately, the final edit sensationalized the story by playing the two clips back to back. After Ice Cube's interview aired, Dee turned to the camera and mentioned that she's always in the middle of controversy.
Always in the middle of controversy right here on Pump It Up.
This was likely a reflexive response to an awkward situation, but in the edit, it looked like she was stoking the flames, encouraging the beef between Ice Cube and N.W.A., and positioning herself right in the middle of it. After the interview fiasco, some time went by, but Dr. Dre and Dee Barnes eventually crossed paths again. At a Def Jam Records party, a drunken Dr. Dre spotted Dee Barnes. Still furious about how the interview had been presented, he flew into a blind rage. According to Rolling Stone reporter Alan Light, in an article called Beating Up the Charts, Dre picked her up by her hair and began slamming her head and the right side of her body repeatedly against a brick wall near the stairway. His bodyguard held off the crowd with a gun, ensuring no one could intervene. Dre then tried to throw her down the stairs but failed. Undeterred, he began kicking her in the ribs and hands. Dee managed to escape and ran into the women's restroom, but Dre followed her, grabbed her from behind by the hair again, and proceeded to punch her in the back of the head.
They grabbed me by my hair and started slamming me up against the wall. It's a painful and traumatic experience.
This vicious attack didn't go unnoticed. Members of N.W.A. openly discussed the incident in subsequent interviews. MC Ren bluntly stated, "She deserved it. B deserved it." Eazy-E echoed this sentiment, saying, "Yeah, B had it coming." Dr. Dre himself was unapologetic, saying, "People talk all this ish, but you know, somebody F with me, I'm gonna F with them. I just did it, you know? Ain't nothing you can do now by talking about it. Besides, it ain't no big thing. I just threw her through a door."
That's what she get. I hope she get it again. She got beat down. The host of that show did something and she know what she did and got beat down, and I hope it happened again.
Dee Barnes tried to sue Dr. Dre for $22.75 million, but the case was settled out of court. Besides Dee Barnes, plenty of other women have also called out Dr. Dre for his behavior. But the worst part is how Eazy was portrayed in the movie. This slant might have something to do with the fact that the story was mostly shaped by Dr. Dre and Ice Cube. And if you know your stuff, you'll remember that Dr. Dre and Eazy-E didn't exactly get along. In fact, their beef was one of the main reasons behind the infamous Ruthless Records versus Death Row feud. In Dre's version of events, the late Eazy-E is painted as either a bitter, foul-mouthed troublemaker, a naive pushover, or a small-time hustler hiding behind ghostwriters while backstabbing friends. But those who were closest to Eazy tell a completely different story. They remember him as a complex, kind-hearted man, not the one-dimensional villain we often see, and definitely someone you wouldn't want to underestimate.
Achievement for all the inner city kids to be here?
Yeah, I think so. I know so.
One of the most talked about moments in Straight Outta Compton is how it portrayed Eazy-E's final days. In the movie, there's a dramatic scene where Eazy breaks down in tears after being diagnosed with HIV, but those who were close to him have called this out as a complete exaggeration.
Look, I'm truly sorry, Mr. Wright.
Members of Bone Thugs and Harmony, who were with Eazy until the very end, said that wasn't how it went down at all. According to them, Eazy never wallowed in despair or let his diagnosis crush his spirit. Instead, he stayed true to himself, handling the situation with strength and determination, even in his final days.
No, it was not true to the story.
Okay.
Here's why it was not true to the story. That last 2 years of his life, Eazy-E was smoking hot. Even though he was sick, he was happy as hell. He had Bone Thugs and Harmony.
I don't like how it was portrayed that Eazy-E was like broke and like stressing, like when he died, because like we didn't get that from him at all. Eazy was riding on the high because he knew he had us, and he knew we was about to ride. We was about to bring him back.
Now, let's be real. Of course, Eazy was sad about his condition. He was young, successful, and had so much to live for. Anyone in his position would feel some level of sadness. But the overly emotional portrayal in the movie didn't match what people close to him actually witnessed. It seemed like the filmmakers took some creative liberties to make the scene more dramatic and impactful for the audience. But in doing so, they painted a picture that didn't align with reality. Another glaring issue in the movie was the claim that Eazy was broke during his later years. The film shows him supposedly downgrading his lifestyle, moving into a smaller house, and struggling financially. But according to people like BG Knockout, this couldn't be further from the truth.
The fact that they try to make him look like he was broke, he bought weed and all this shit, he was finna start slanging, all that shit.
In fact, Eazy was anything but broke. His company, Ruthless Records, was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He had a thriving bank account, the #1 group and album in the country, and multiple properties, not some downsized single house as the movie suggests.
His company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. His bank account was still flooded. He had Bone, he had the #1 group. You know what I'm saying? The #1 album. Like, he had multiple houses, man. Like, Eazy, his one house, I promise you, like, if you were to walk in his house, you would feel some type of way, how beautiful that.
To put it in perspective, Eazy was worth about $50 million at the time of his passing, with Ruthless Records valued at $30 million. He had a collection of assets that included several homes spread across high-end areas like Norwalk, Topanga, Westlake, Calabasas, and Woodland Hills. His Woodland Hills property was especially luxurious, perched on a hill with stunning views and tucked away from the noise of city life. Eazy wasn't just about the money, though. He was also a dedicated father who spared no expense for his kids. He reportedly spent over $20,000 a year per child on private Christian Montessori schooling and more than $50,000 a month on child support. On top of that, he went all out for birthdays, designer clothes, jewelry, and the latest toys. According to his son Eric Jr., they even spent quality time together playing Sonic the Hedgehog. Beyond being a father and a rapper, Eazy was a businessman with an eye for opportunity. He was involved in several ventures, from creating a comic book series called The Hood with Rob Liefeld, co-creator of Deadpool, to developing speakers called Eazy-E's Bass Shakers. He also had plans for a video game, a screenplay titled Smiling Faces, and even opening a film studio. In 1994, he started the Ruthless radio show on K-Day's 92.3 The Beat, which quickly became a hit, topping its time slot. According to FBI files, Ruthless Records was making over $10 million a month in revenue around the time of Eazy's death in 1995. The label became the first independent record company to outsell major ones. Even after his passing, Eazy's legacy lived on. His widow still owns N.W.A.'s catalog, and royalty checks from old Ruthless artists continue to flow into his estate. With the rise of streaming services, Eazy's music and business ventures will likely keep generating revenue for generations. So, portraying Eazy as broke in the movie? That just doesn't add up. BG Knockout believes the portrayal was intentional, a way for Dr. Dre and others involved to skew Eazy's legacy.
I don't get like why they put that in the movie. So to me, it seemed like they was trying to skew his legacy, in my opinion.
Another side of Eazy-E that Straight Outta Compton completely ignored was his selfless and giving nature. People who knew him always talk about how he had a big heart and a soft spot for anyone society overlooked or forgot about. Whether it was small acts of kindness or grand gestures, Eazy showed his empathy time and time again. For instance, in his own neighborhood, Eazy would do things like buy ice cream for the kids in Compton or spend hours skateboarding with the younger kids in Calabasas. But it wasn't just about the small stuff. He went all out when it came to helping others. During the holidays, Eazy would dress up as Santa Claus to hand out gifts and make sure families in need had turkeys for Thanksgiving. He didn't stop there. He'd take the children of his employees on Disney trips and even spent over $600 on merchandise to make those moments extra special. He was always trying to expose kids to opportunities they might not otherwise get. He sponsored rodeo events to introduce inner-city youth to new cultural experiences and spent time talking to incarcerated teens, encouraging them to turn their lives around.
See the kids to be here?
Yeah, I think so. I know so. What you think?
And it wasn't just his time he gave. Eazy also donated a significant amount of money to causes he believed in. He supported charities like City of Hope Memorial Hospital, participated in the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and was involved with athletes and entertainers for kids. His generosity even earned him an invitation to a 2-day conference and fundraising event hosted by President George H.W. Bush in 1991. But one story really shows the kind of person Eazy was. Cocaine, a member of the group Above the Law, shared how Eazy saved his kids' lives. Cocaine's twins were born prematurely and needed an expensive operation to survive. Eazy canceled an important business meeting, drove all the way from Calabasas to Fontana, and handed over $30,000 to cover the medical bills. "I honor that brother to this day," Cocaine said.
Before my kids was born, they were born prematurely, twins. They was about to be born, they need to be born 7 months. So they needed a major operation. Eric had an important meeting to go to. a deal breaker meeting. Eric Wright canceled his meeting, drove up to Fontana, California. You understand? And cashed them people out $30,000 cash here.
For so many people, Eazy wasn't just a boss or a business partner. He was a mentor, a protector, and a friend. He had a way of seeing the potential in people that they couldn't see in themselves. He encouraged them to aim higher and be better than they ever thought possible. But the movie didn't show this side of him at all. Instead, it painted Eazy as a pushover, which couldn't be further from the truth. One of the most ridiculous moments in Straight Outta Compton is the scene where Suge Knight supposedly intimidates Eazy into signing over Dr. Dre's contract to Death Row Records. In the movie, Suge is shown slapping Eazy around and bullying him into giving up Dre.
Now.
But anyone who really knew Eazy knew this portrayal was pure fiction. Eazy wasn't the kind of guy you could just push around. He had deep connections with some of the most serious figures out there, including the Crips and the Mexican Mafia. Both BG Knockout and Keef D have dismissed the idea of Suge ever laying a hand on Eazy.
Is he getting beat up?
Yeah,
by
you
Suge
know.
and his people?
You don't want that problem.
Well, I
wouldn't want that problem.
For them, the slap story is pure fiction. After all, Suge Knight would have been risking a war with the Southside Crips, and that's not a gamble anyone would want to take.
I watched that movie and stuff like that. I don't think that's true because Eazy had the whole Alondra behind him.
Eazy also had connections to the Mexicans, and years later, he would go on to cement that connection in a big way when he signed Brownside, a Chicano rap group led by the late Toker, as well as another groundbreaking Mexican rapper, Kid Frost. At a time when Latino rap wasn't taken seriously in the mainstream, Eazy-E saw something others didn't. He was ahead of his time and foresaw that the Chicano rap movement was going to be a force to reckon with.
He ended up signing Kid Frost, and we ended up working on the Brownside record, you know what I mean? And you know, that was his thing. He had that mind state about it because he knew that was coming. Like I said, the guy was ahead of his time.
Brownside, in particular, was something special. Under Eazy's guidance, they became pioneers of Chicano rap, laying down the blueprint for how the genre would sound and feel. But Brownside wasn't just another rap group trying to capitalize on a trend. These guys were real gangsters, straight out of the streets with stories to tell. Everything they rapped about was authentic. There were no exaggerations, no clout-chasing antics, just raw, real-life experiences that reflected who they were.
Came up and started blasting cause I knew they couldn't fake it. Jokers on the loose. And I'm straight gang related.
One of the most legendary stories about Brownside's loyalty to Eazy comes from the height of the infamous Ruthless Records versus Death Row Records beef. The war between Eazy-E and Suge Knight was no joke. Death Row was known for being aggressive, and Suge Knight's reputation for intimidation was well earned. But as Toker later explained, Brownside played a huge role in keeping Eazy safe during this time. According to Toker, he and the Brownside crew showed up at Ruthless Records right when things started getting heated between Eazy and Suge. Toker described it as almost fate, like destiny brought them there at just the right time. Death Row's crew had assumed they could overpower Eazy because they thought he was alone and vulnerable, but they were wrong. Brownside was already there, ready to ride for Eazy without hesitation. Toker said they let Eazy know straight up, "We're here, and we're ready to back you up no matter what."
We got you Ruthless when the Death Row Ruthless beef was cracking. So they thought they were gonna overpower my boy because my boy was by himself. But you know Destiny's the mother. Destiny took Toker and the Brownside clique to Ruthless.
Toker said that during one of their conversations, they told Eazy straight up, "If there's anyone you want gone, just say the word." Eazy, being the kind of guy he was, tried to brush it off. He told them, "It's not like that, man," trying to downplay the situation, but Toker wasn't having it. He looked Eazy in the eye and said, "Nah, it's exactly like that."
Long story short, we told E, we rolling with you, fool. We got your back. What's cracking with this Death Row Ruthless? Who you want gone? Cause we ain't around.
Toker made it clear to Eazy that if he just mentioned a name, they'd handle it, and he wasn't bluffing. Toker said they had youngins, kids who were 15 or 16 years old, that were more than ready to step up and do the job. In Toker's words, "At most, they'll let them out when they're 22, so you don't gotta worry about a thing." That's how serious they were.
All right, don't worry about it, E. I'm gonna send my little young juvenile torpedoes so they can go ahead and do YA life. They're gonna let my boys out when they're 22 years old. Don't worry about it.
After that conversation, things between Eazy and the Mexican community became even tighter. Eazy knew he had an army behind him. Wherever he went, fancy restaurants, important meetings, or events, he'd call up Brownside and his Mexican homies to roll with him. They weren't just there for show either. These guys were ready for whatever. They were hoping to run into anyone from Death Row Records so they could make a statement and prove to Eazy that they had his back till the very end.
Everywhere he went, he called his Mexicans. He called his brown brothers. Where you at? What's cracking? Swoop up over here. Come in the Lolos. He be in Beverly Hills at an expensive restaurant. 20 Mexicans drive up. Hoping we ran into somebody from that row. Hoping. Because we wanted to make a statement. We wanted to make a statement. But luckily, never.
And one day, they got their chance. According to Toker, Eazy was chilling at a cheesecake factory when about 7 or 8 guys claiming to be affiliated with Death Row appeared. These guys surrounded Eazy, trying to intimidate him. These dudes were trying to flex their strength, maybe thinking they'd caught him alone and vulnerable.
And it was like 7, 8 motherfuckers that claimed Death Row waiting for their cars to pull up because they were leaving the cheesecake factory. Right when my boy E walked past them, they all surrounded him. What's up? And they were saying the N-word on him.
But they didn't realize what they had walked into. Out of nowhere, the tables turned. Suddenly, the Death Row guys found themselves surrounded, and not just by a few people. Toker described it as feeling like they were at a Mexican soccer field. The entire place was filled with Mexican gang members who showed up to protect Eazy. These weren't random guys either. They were real gangsters, people who didn't play around.
All of a sudden, them 7, 8 motherfuckers looked around like, we're surrounded. They thought they were at a Mexican soccer field surrounded by Mexican soccer players, but it was us. I said, what's up, man? You got beef with my brother Eazy? They were like, oh, damn. You got beef with my little brother Eazy? You got beef with me, and then my little homie started coming out with the heat. They were like, no, man.
The Death Row affiliates were completely shook. The intimidation game flipped on them real quick, and they knew they were outnumbered. Without wasting any time, they scrambled out of there, jumping into their cars and speeding off like their lives depended on it. And just to send a message, Toker and the crew didn't let them leave quietly. Toker told them straight up, in case y'all want to come back, you're more than welcome. We'll be right here waiting. This was a statement, one that made it loud and clear that Eazy-E wasn't alone. And if anyone thought they could intimidate him, they'd have to deal with the Mexican gangs of Compton. Regardless of how twisted Straight Outta Compton was in its portrayal of Eazy, his legacy still stands strong today. No amount of creative editing can erase the mark he left on hip-hop and the culture as a whole.